Today's special edition of the Sports Movie Hall of Fame on the BS podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That's our presenting sponsor since 1988. Find the best tickets for sporting events, music, wrestling, opera, March Madness, still going, you name it. I've had SeatGeek on my phone for 2 years, and it's by far the easiest way I've found to shop for the best tickets thanks to their revolutionary grading system. Buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps on your phone. Everything fully guaranteed. Try it out. Download the SeatGeek app today or go right to SeatGeek.com. We are also brought to you by the Ringer NFL Show. That's where you can find our new podcast, Weekly GM Street. That is hosted by the Ringer's Michael Lombardi with Tate Frazier, the producer for this podcast, as well as the co-host of Teed Up on Ringer University. I highly recommend this pod. Every week, Lombardi breaks down all the latest subplots, plots, replots, double plots, whatever you want, and also gives you a little football knowledge as well. You can hear it on the Ringer NFL Show. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so we had Mark Titus in town last week. We have done 4 episodes of the Sports Movie Hall of Fame, and this is the 5th. It is Blue Chips. We thought it was topical because it is March Madness. I'm not positive it's a Hall of Famer, but it is March Madness, and for God's sakes, Young Shaq is in it. So here you go, Blue Chips. If you haven't seen this movie, it stars Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, Nick Nolte. There's a cameo by Larry Bird. There's just a lot going on. I highly recommend it as a bizarre mid-90s watchable sports movie, or something to watch for the 15th time if you've seen it for the last 25 years. Anyway, here you go. Blue Chips, Sports Movie Hall of Fame, Volume 5. Let's do it. Sports Movie Hall of Fame, Volume 5. We have done White Men Can't Jump, Any Given Sunday, Moneyball, Jerry Maguire. Every time Chris Ryan and I have been here, we occasionally have a special guest. We have one today, Mark Titus.
I'm a friend of the program.
Yes. Friend of the program. The real life inspiration for Ricky Rowe, even though you hadn't really you were like a baby when the movie came out. Blue Chips, we thought we would do it because it's March Madness. And I was out of college when this movie came out, but I remember reading about it, hearing about that it was happening, and it came out in February 1994. And the big thing, there were 2 things that stood out. One was that they were really playing the games. Yeah. This was like, they were writing about this as it was happening. They were like, it was William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist, some other stuff.
French Connection.
I
got some Friedkin trivia for you coming up.
Oh, good. Yes.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Oh, yeah. So his big thing was, basketball movies, they're too scripted. They're too choreographed. Mm-hmm. He's going to let these dudes play. And then it was like, it's not just the guys in the game, but it's also, they got all these other college players. So we'll talk about that in a second. And Shaq and Penny were in it, was the other wrinkle. And it was supposed to be this unflinching look at the NCAA. So there was a lot of buzz when this movie came out. And I remember it came out in like the right kind of weekend. It was like a month before March Madness. There was real excitement for it. And it kind of fizzled. Roger Ebert liked it, though, I remember.
Not surprising. So of all the movies we've done for this, I was wondering why this one I hadn't really thought about in a long time, hadn't rewatched it a lot. This is the one that actually has the most contempt for its subject. Like, I don't think this movie likes college basketball
It definitely doesn't.
No,
Unflinching.
It does not.
So it's kind of weird because, like, even in Any Given Sunday, where those guys are emotionally paralyzed, drug addict, abusive maniacs, Oliver Stone clearly thinks football players are gods.
Yeah.
But in this movie, I mean, like the Ron Shelton stuff, Ron Shelton wrote and directed White Man Can't Jump. He obviously loves basketball, but it is not a movie that is like affectionate towards its subject matter at all.
That was another part of the buzz. I forgot about that, Ron Shelton, because it was coming up, Bull Durham, White Men Can't Jump. And it's like, now he's tackling college basketball. And I think I don't know who was running the NCAA, but they allowed the uniforms to be used, which I don't think that'll ever happen again.
I can't believe Bob Knight agreed.
They let Bob Knight.
Insane.
Bob Knight's in
That's
it.
insane.
And then I think at the last second they changed it from NCAA to like NCSA or like something like that. But all right, Titus, you played basketball in college at Ohio State.
What was the single most ridiculous thing that happened in this movie for you?
It all kind of felt so. I just got done watching it, and I kind of felt like I imagine Neil deGrasse Tyson feels when he watches every movie he watches, where he's like, where he's well, actually, you know, for every scene and picking out the stars. It's so close to being accurate, but it's not there. It's like the uncanny valley of college basketball, where it's like, I see where you're trying to make this, but it's so far off that it just is. It all was comical to me. Like, the one scene that stood out the most to me was Butch McRae comes in and says he's homesick, and he says, "Coach, I can't run the motion offense." And me and Tate looked at each other like, "Who can't run the motion offense?"
Right.
Like, it's a motion offense.
He wants to play 1-4.
Yeah, he wants to play 1-4. He's like,
what's 1-4? That's basically Russell Westbrook's offense in
give me the
OKC
ball
right
and get
now.
everybody out of the way.
It's the early dribble drive.
There's stuff like that where the movie thinks it's so smart, and like you said, it wants to be authentic and it wants to be, but then I would almost rather just be like super campy and just like and not try to do that, because it's taking itself so seriously. Like, hey, we have the most authentic basketball movie, and then basketball people are like, actually, no, you don't at all. This is way off.
Also, the concept of not really being able to figure out how to use Butch McRae, played by Penny Hardaway, who is like one of the most perfect basketball player bodies / talents ever. It's like, I don't know, we can't fit him into our motion offense. Like, I'm pretty sure he could have fit in any offense.
Yeah, right.
This guy was way more gifted than any other player. So the concept, or the plot of Blue Chips, Pete Bell, just an unabashed Bob Knight ripoff, which made it really weird that Knight's in the last scene, because it's like...
But is it set in... He's coaching in... Western is
He's
supposed to be
coaching
UCLA.
Western University.
Is that supposed to be UCLA?
This was another
like
gripe
LA.
I have, is that they didn't just sell out and make it Indiana, because they based the guy off Bob Knight. They have the French Lick scene. They filmed the thing in Indiana.
Yeah.
The gym that they filmed it in is a high school in Indiana, like about an hour north of Indianapolis, like this rural high school. And then they sell out and like make the school be on the West Coast. And I'm thinking, why not just make the school Indiana?
It's funny to watch it now with all the with the Ball brothers all going to UCLA, and they're like, "Oh man, we just can't get guys to come to Los Angeles."
Yeah,
it's
right.
like UCLA has never not had guys.
Yeah,
right. It's so that one-on-one with Robbie Benson, I think that one was called like Big State or something like that, and that was also set in LA. But I always like when they don't just use they're not allowed to use the college's name. So Pete Bell is trying to do things the right way, and he's starting to lose, and the boosters and the press are. So now he finally decides maybe it's time.
He's gonna let JT Walsh get his hands on his program.
Is this your favorite JT Walsh performance of all time?
No, my favorite is by far A Few Good Men.
Okay,
Colonel,
so Lieutenant
Colonel Markinson. Yeah. He's
What
a
about you,
ghost.
Titus?
I would say it's my I mean, JT Walsh passed away probably before I got to really enjoy him, and I guess that's kind of what makes this movie interesting. Maybe I'm jumping ahead too far, but I watched this way after the fact. Like, 'cause when I was 7 years old when this movie came out, so my dad was like, "No, you're not watching this. They say bad words or whatever." So I had to wait till later, and when I watched it, it felt like, well, duh. Like, what's the point of this movie? You're trying to expose that this is how the NCAA is, and it's like, well, yeah, I know this already.
People really knew in
so I'm asking you
1992,
guys, like, when it came out, was this like a whoa? That's how the college basketball really is.
I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there had been a couple of like big sanctions like around then. Like, if I'm trying to remember.
Well, there was. I mean, you
think-
had point shaving scandals in the 80s.
Yeah, and
like,
you also, I think that's after Cal's UMass team with Camby.
No, that was after.
That was
this.
after?
Yeah,
that was
There have
after.
been some big programs.
It was
like that.
UNLV was the big
Yeah,
one
UNLV
that
was
everybody
UNLV,
was looking at.
Which is hilarious because Tarkanian's in the movie and he's recruiting Butch McRae, and he said something. They have the scene where like Nick Nolte goes up and Tarkanian's like, "Yeah, I don't think we can get him in academically."
Right.
That was probably the funniest part to me, was
that's
Tarkanian
true.
saying he can't get someone in academically.
You know
That
what
was
actually
the
is
most
my
irony.
favorite performance in this movie is Patino.
As Richard in the
Really
credits.
convincing,
As
like
Richard,
Richard
Pitino.
Pitino.
but
Yeah.
just like really good at like delivering those like great call, ref. You're a great official.
Right. So this was 94. They're making it 93. I got to say, like, we didn't have the internet back then. Unless Sports Illustrated did like a big piece about the NCAA for something, nothing really happened. Like ESPN was, and they probably had Outside the Lines back then, but I don't feel like ESPN was breaking journalism
on
like they
after,
did.
like,
So
sumo
I
wrestling.
mean, I didn't know anything. Like I remember reading the Fab Five book by Mitch Albom and finding out stuff in that and being like, wow, these guys can barely pay for their McDonald's and they're selling their jersey. Like, so I do think there was some naivete.
Yeah.
back then. I now it seems ridiculous.
Right,
It's-
that's what I mean. Like as I watch it now, and even when I first watched it, I was like, well, duh, of course. Like what? I mean, it's a cool movie, I guess, but you're not really telling us anything we don't know. And
Is the booster a hero to you or a villain?
Well, my favorite part about the booster was when they have the confrontation, and he tells Coach Bell, he's like, I didn't break any laws. You're the one who's breaking the NCAA laws. And you're like, wow, that's a great point. He didn't break any laws. And then like 2 seconds later, he says, I fixed that one game. And
Right,
you're
yeah,
playing.
right.
I'm like, wait a second.
But he has that like much more this is a good question because like he's very much set up as the villain, but there's that scene where he's like confronts him and he's like, you have a multi-year contract and a shoe deal that makes these kids into a walking billboard. And these kids deserve this money basically.
Yeah, he says, God damn it, coach, we owe these kids.
Yeah, but even the way you're saying that is not, he's like saying he's got like spittle in
like
his
angry.
teeth. Yeah, and he's like, but that's the tension in this movie. I mean, this is a movie that basically at every point where you're expecting it to go into a sports trope that you would, that makes you feel good. The reason you rewatch these movies ultimately is to feel good about these teams. I mean, the opening scene, it's just like Nick Nolte's like, you make me sick.
Right.
For like 5 minutes, and you're just like, is this scene gonna end? He's just like, I can't believe I have to watch you guys.
Right.
And it's like full on Jack from 48 Hours, just like 7-day hangover Nick Nolte.
I feel like that would have saved this movie and made it a real classic if it was actually Jack Cates from 48 Hours goes to this team. I don't know what you're looking at. Like just racial slurs just going totally over the line. But have you watched 48 Hours recently, by the way?
have.
Every year it ages worse. And this is my favorite movie of all time. And every year I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I love Jack Cates. Like he was a family member. He's the worst guy. Anyway, so there's a tension with the booster who, when they made this movie, the booster's like a bad guy. And now you watch it and you look at it and you go, yeah, the booster had a point, man. Butch McRae got a house and his mom got a job. Ricky Rowe got a tractor.
My question is like, what is his motivation? And the obvious answer is he wants to see his alma mater or his favorite team be good. But is that really? And what's the motivation for all the boosters that do this? Are they just that rich? That
it worked in football.
When you're like, we see rich people and they're like buying all this art, and I'm just like,
you see,
why? Like, why are you expecting? Like,
they don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the same thing with. That's a really good question. It's like I don't really even understand boosters. Like, why would you spend that much money? It's like, what do you have to gain from it?
It's a way worse version of like youth sports parents.
Yeah.
Like the people that I see now because my kids play youth sports, like some of the most comical versions of them, but now give them like, hundreds of billions of dollars or millions of dollars.
Is there some sort of psychological thing where they think that they're part
on
of
the
the team and
Yeah.
that's what it is?
And
It's
you
like,
see that
if
with
I-
like the college football
Yeah.
teams a lot, where it's like all of a sudden Houston. I'm not like an expert, but like Houston got really good over the last 5 years, and one of the reasons is like the guy who like funds Houston's athletics program is like this oil billionaire, right?
The famous guy at UCLA was Sam Gilbert. He was like the guy who,
Yeah, Sam Gilbert.
by
was
all
the
accounts,
friend
was
of the
John
program.
Wooden's guardian angel. I mean, when Tate is the CEO of the Ringer someday,
Yeah.
and he's just raking in cash,
Donating
you don't
money
think
back
he's
to
going to
UNC.
decide? Yeah, you don't think he's going to try to
Propping up
destroy Duke?
UNC's flailing
Yeah, you
sports
don't think
program?
Tate's going to pay dudes under the table at UNC? He would do it right now. Tate, you would
I would have paid for Wiggins.
you would have paid for Wiggins. But yeah, so the Pete Bell character, I'm not ever sure I like in this movie, and I think that's the fatal. There's two fatal flaws from a sports movie standpoint. One is that I don't know who the hero is. I think it's supposed to be Pete Bell because, you know, he goes through it. He sells out. He sells out with the booster, and then they win the big game. But it's no chill scene. Like it's very anti-chill scene-y. They don't do a good job with the last play. I don't even really know what the last play. What was it, like an alley-oop?
It was
to
also
Shaq?
a regular season game.
Yeah.
at
Right,
home, and it wasn't like
March Madness
rushed
or
the
anything like
court,
that.
yeah.
And then he gives this crazy press conference, and his career's over. And then, so I'm supposed to be like, "Great job, coach. You don't have a job anymore, and you've totally embarrassed these kids you recruited."
Yeah, there's like some,
good luck.
there's a very tacked on redemption of him showing a kid on a playground how to shoot a jumper. That just feels like it was like we
So
gotta
instead of
put
shot
one
later.
bumper on here that like just
Yeah.
because it's just also like when would any like even in the 90s like old men showing up on playgrounds at night to show guys how to shoot jumpers just like was it
And little kids out on a playground at 10 at night, like playing
and it's
pickup
like, oh
in the
cool,
dark.
yeah, show me how to shoot a jumper with one hand. That's great.
Yeah, that's a little weird. All right, would you want to play for Nick Nolte, Titus?
I don't think so. No. That was another. The whole Pete Bell character was another thing that was so close to being accurate, but not accurate, that I kind of was frustrated by it. Because he was obviously a Bob Knight ripoff, but Knight wasn't. The misconception about Knight was that he was just always yelling and screaming and always just like really angry and stuff. Knight was very even keeled for most of the time. He just was like, he would say things that were really harsh, but he'd say it with a straight face and very calm about it.
Yeah.
And then he would snap. And when he'd snap, like that's when you get the chairs thrown and he's bringing a whip into press conferences and all that kind of stuff. So that was another thing I was like kind of frustrated, is that this guy's just a maniac at every second of practice and games and his pep talks and all that kind of stuff.
And how
So-
did that appeal to Bobby Knight? Because or maybe he just didn't read the script.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, did you ever play for a guy who's like a real hard ass?
Oh
like,
yeah, I grew up in Indiana. Like every coach in Indiana wanted to be Bob Knight. Like that was the thing. I played for my high school coach. We would run sprints, and he'd say, "We're running till you get it," or whatever. Like whatever the time was, and we wouldn't get it because I would probably not be able to get it. And they'd be like, "We're running it again." And like every time you're running it, you're getting slower because you're getting more tired. And he was like, "No, we're gonna keep doing this until you get it." I'm like, "Coach, just." It's simple science. Like my body is getting more tired as I'm doing this, and so I definitely played for coaches like that. That was all over.
You should have
Indiana,
faked like a heart arrhythmia
Yeah.
or something.
Those are things. But they did the thing where I forget what the guy's name was. The kid who was shaving points early on before he starts cheating.
Tony.
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 So they do the thing where he's failing his TV class, and Coach Bell pulls him to the side and they do the little thing. And he's like, how's class going? How's life? How's that? And that's the scene that's supposed to say like, I'm a hard ass and I'm going to yell at you and scream at you, but at the end of the day, I'm going to make you a better man. And I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm your buddy and all that kind of stuff, which is like, it's the thing that IU fans, when they talk about Bob Knight, is they always circle back to that. Like, you might hate him, but his players loved him. He
Right.
turned them into men and all
He
that kind of
drove
stuff.
that
as though-
player's girlfriend to Planned Parenthood that time.
when he would grab that player's neck, he was doing it from a place of love.
Yeah. I mean,
So wait, let me ask you: do you think that this movie is different if the character is written the same, but Paul Newman is playing Pete Bell?
I don't think it's
Paul
a
Newman's
good.
a little old for that, but like, let's just say someone like with that kind of like, because Nick Nolte is a great actor, but I don't know necessarily that Nick Nolte, especially at that point in his life, is what you would call a charismatic actor.
There's been good Nolte and there's been bad Nolte.
Yeah.
I think this is somewhere in the middle. And
What's your favorite Nolte? 48 hours?
48 hours, he's the best. Because I really just think that's very close to what he's probably like, all the time. But he was also like, when I was a kid, he was the guy from Rich Man, Poor Man, and he was like going to be the next huge A-list star and all this stuff.
The next Ryan O'Neal.
And then, but he basically became Ryan O'Neal.
Yeah.
He became this hard drinking type of guy. But so if you're looking at 94, right? So it's got to be somebody within that Bobby Knight kind of age. Paul Newman would have been too old.
I mean, Pacino could have done it.
Pacino would have been, but we saw Pacino as a football coach. I would have rather have had that. Nicholson might have been the right age range. I don't know how that would have
I
played.
mean, he knows basketball, but then it would just be like, come on, it's Jack Nicholson. Who wouldn't take his money? Like,
It
let's
could have
go.
been just Gene Hackman.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
Gene Hackman. They
just
ripped off
run Gene
Hoosiers.
Hackman
They
back.
ripped off Hoosiers with they had Ricky Rowe doing the farm shooting thing like he was Jimmy Chitwood.
Yeah.
There's that scene, and then there was before the big game where they play Indiana. Coach Bell tells Ricky, he's like, those goals out there are 10 feet, just like your goal back home in Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a little too on the nose. Like, what are we doing here? So why not just have Gene
The
Hackman?
Bobby Knight Hoosiers hangover was a real thing in 1994 because Hoosiers at that point, I don't think it's aged as well as Hoosiers came out in 86. For the next 15 years, it's the number one sports movie. In any argument, what's the best sports movie? It's Hoosiers. There might have been a case for The Natural for a little while, but then The Natural hasn't aged well either. And now I don't even, now I guess it depends on the eras.
Yeah, and then-
like Tate, what's your favorite sports movie ever?
Hoosiers State.
Yeah, probably he got game.
He Got Game. What's your favorite?
Hoosiers. I'm from Indiana.
Hoosiers,
What do
okay.
Yeah.
So mine's still Hoosiers, but I
Yeah.
can see the case against it now.
Yeah. I mean, also, Hoosiers has the exact opposite message of this movie, which is that
Which basketball is
basketball
good
will
and
redeem
pure.
you, and this movie is like basketball
Yeah.
ultimately will corrupt you unless you're playing in the most purest form of like high school basketball.
on.
doesn't work.
So it has the Hoosiers thing and it has the Bobby Knight halo because this is coming
Yeah.
off Season in the Brink, him coaching Steve Alford and all those guys, and then Keith Smart, the title team. And there was still Bobby Knight mystique. So I think it took advantage of both.
By
of
the
those.
way, Nick Nolte apparently shadowed Bob Knight to like get an
Yeah,
idea
for
for the
months.
character. The season he shadowed him, IU went to the Final Four, and then Bob Knight never went to another Final Four the rest of his career. After Nolte put a curse on him.
You think that was it?
Blue chips curse. He never went back
introduced
to the
him to
Final
whiskey.
Four.
So that was another fun part of this movie is, they use the real basketball players, and it's this who's who of dudes from '93. Somehow Jalen and C-Web not in there, but Cal Chaney,
Rick Fox
Bobby
is in there.
Hurley, Rick Fox, Rodney Rogers.
It was a movie about paying players. Why was
George
why
Lynch.
would they put the
George
Fab
Lynch
Five
is in there.
The Fab Five didn't want to be in there because it was
Chris Mills,
Wasn't Alan Houston? We saw
Alan
Yeah.
Houston was
Houston,
in there. Yeah.
George Lynch. Come on, Tate.
Yeah.
Geert Hammock,
Travis Ford.
Travis Ford.
Travis
yeah.
Ford was in there.
Yeah.
A lot of
I
good
didn't see
ones.
him, yeah.
So on the big screen, watching, I'd be like, "Oh, that guy!
Yeah.
Oh, that guy!"
Yeah.
And it was one of those things. But ultimately, the basketball was fun to watch, but it kind of felt like a sports center. I actually wish they should have. They probably
There
should have
wasn't enough.
choreographed it more. Yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't,
there wasn't enough.
either.
That is like if you're gonna have all these great guys, and that's like kind of the hook of your movie is we have real scenes. Like, give us more of that.
Yeah, it's
then-
kind of like why White Man kind of works really well is even though it's obvious that Wesley can't really play that well.
Yeah.
All the slow-mo stuff and the fact that it's just a two-man game so that they can do more creative weird alley-oops and stuff like that. With this, it's almost just like a hyper version of television broadcast of basketball.
Yeah. I think they went too far with it. But I actually think he felt like they were breaking new ground with the way they were
Yeah,
shooting
right.
it. But it turned out to be a mistake. Ironically, the best basketball scene in this entire movie is Bob Cousy making 10 straight free throws. Which
Great performance from Cousy.
was.
Cousy during the press conference is great.
So-
Just like him putting his head in his hands.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Oh, my God.
So I remember when this movie was on cable, they did the little, when they're between movies on HBO and they
Yeah.
run like the little 10-minute thing about the movie, and there was something about that scene in the little vignette thing, and apparently that wasn't in the script for him to make all those. So when you watch it, Nick Nolte goes, "God, don't you ever miss?" Like that's like ad
Yeah,
lib
it's like a
because
real ad-lib.
Cousy's just boom, 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 and then goes
He just goes
lefty on the
left-handed,
last
yeah,
one.
he goes lefty.
He's like 68 years old or something at the time that was
I
happening.
love
That was amazing.
I love that we all like just buy into that scene as though it makes sense because it's Bob. Because you see him, and you just see Bob Cousy. You don't see like the athletic
It's not
director.
He's playing
AD.
Vic though, Vic
but,
the AD.
But if you like step back and apply and look at it as part of the story, the athletic director is talking to the coach about the team, and they're just sitting there shooting free throws. Like that has never happened
Right.
on any college campus.
The most
in the
unrealistic
country.
scene in this movie might be Bob Cousy coming into the locker room after the first loss in the movie, and he's just like, "Hey, it's okay. We'll get him next time.
Yeah, right.
You guys played your hearts out." It's like, what AD ever saw
Yeah,
this
no,
like
yeah,
this?
that's not happening.
I
yeah.
think that part of what I want, like Blue Chips, is almost a little too early in history. Where I wish, because you've seen too many movies about these hard ass coaches,
Yeah.
who actually have a heart of gold. It would be cool to either get a movie that was about a real slick guy, like a Calipari Patino type, and like kind of chasing the night kind of guy, or a real like technocrat Brad Stevens type dude who's like young.
He'd be the worst sports movie character.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd
but
be
if
boring.
Butler,
That'd be really
if
boring.
Butler,
I love Brad Stevens, but
Yeah.
God, that'd be boring.
if Butler won the title, like that would have been a perfect.
That would have to be like a Christian sports movie or something. Like, give it like a religious spin. I was thinking, watching Blue Chips, really it missed its calling as a Netflix series. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't really have a beginning
Yeah.
or an ending. And then
Yeah,
when it
that's
just
true.
kind of has to
What's
have
like
the ending and
so
has,
would you? But if you got to the end of the first season of Blue Chips and that was how it ended, wouldn't you be like, ugh?
then it's like the NCAA is coming after him.
Yeah.
You string that out for like 2-3 years, right? The point shaving scandal could have been the season 1 cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You might just keep going and going with it. The point shaving thing to me is the most unrealistic scene. Not that they'd shave points, but that they were able to solve it with a video cassette
Yeah.
in 5 minutes.
Like
And
it's
it's
just
just like
No,
five
man, it's
guys
not
being
Tony.
like,
Tony's looking at
great
me. He's like,
jumper.
no, it can't be him at all. Tony's looking at the clock and
Yeah.
then just throwing it to the other team.
Do
It's
you
like,
like-
wait a second. Do you think you're shaving? Yeah, he might have been. He
In
had
the
11
history of
turnovers.
cinematic point shaving, do you like this or the 20-minute point shaving scene in The Gambler?
This is worse.
The Gambler is like a movie about blackjack until the third act of The Gambler is like a movie about Mark Wahlberg watching guys shave points.
Right. And then the ending is just him playing black or red in roulette. It's like, should we have a more ambitious gambling ending? No, just have him play black or red. It could be over. I see. If I was a college coach, and maybe I'm just a cynical bad person, I would always be worried about my guys shaving points because my guys aren't getting paid, and there's so much money bet on college basketball that if we were like favored by 9 and my point guard we're up 15, he's looking up at the clock during every play and then throwing it to the other team, I would immediately be suspicious.
I don't know if this is obvious to you guys or not, but we every year to start the season we would have a meeting with an NCAA person who would talk about point shaving, and the NCAA makes this video that's just as like terrible as you would assume it is, and they try to scare all the players, and we all have to watch it at the start of every college basketball season. I don't know if that was just like the Big Ten.
Would you guys laugh through it like it was like a sex ed video, or is it? Would anybody
it's pretty
be
much
kind of
what it
like
was.
sweating?
Was
and
sex
nervous?
ed videos. Like there'd be some guys that would like kind of just be like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing, and I'm just laughing hysterically like this is so stupid that we're doing this.
Do you think guys, not to get anybody indicted, but
No,
do
let's
you
do
think that guys don't shave points but do prop stuff? Like if there's a prop bet for like first team to get a foul shot or something.
I'm not trying to cover up. I honestly, when I was there, like no one had any. Everyone's just so like one track mind. Like they want to score a lot of points and make the NBA. They want to get laid after the game, and that's pretty much their only existence. They don't care about anything
prop
else.
bets on that.
Or get laid during the game as they're trying to make the
like
NBA.
those
They
are the
combine
things,
those two.
That's all they care about. So I'm sure there are exceptions, obviously, but that was another part of the movie that was just ridiculous to me, was that it's like they got together and had a brainstorming session of what's all the scummy things that happen in college sports. Yeah. And they made a list, and then they had to check every single box for this one program in this one year, or this one moment in time at this one program. Like this never happens all at once. Like it's just one program maybe is buying cars, and then the other program's shaving points, and the other program's doing. But to have one program like doing literally everything, where you get the academic stuff and the recruiting stuff and the point shaving, it's like that's not how it quite works. But
when is the last time? I mean, when is the last time like somebody has gone from like mediocre to like best recruiting class in the nation, and it hasn't resulted in something happening afterwards?
I think we're gonna find out now with Washington.
With Washington?
Yeah, because they're gonna get Fultz and
Washington. Yeah,
and the kid who's the kid this year?
Michael Porter's
Michael
coming
Porter
in next.
Jr.
His
Yeah,
dad.
but Fultz is leaving though, right?
I know, but back to back years they got like two.
Because that's what
absolute
like kind of
studs.
happened with SMU too, right? With the Moody
Right.
year,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
where it was like SMU, and it's like Larry Brown's there, and they've got like 3 amazing high school players, and it was like, gee, really? Like, and it took like 6 months for that to go wrong. Am I? That's right?
Yeah, then he just he just felt the sword for the team.
Sure. Larry Brown, selfless.
I remember at Grantland when we made some big low key signings. I remember I was getting accused back then of what's going on.
I still love
is he
my
paying
tractor.
these guys,
Yeah.
and it turned out I was. We were paying every guy.
I was sort of bummed watching it now, Blue Chips, that they weren't clever enough with how they recruited they pulled off these recruiting violations, because now like the kid Michael Porter Jr., his dad was hired as an assistant coach on Washington staff, and like that's how you do it, and you got to find these new ways to get the money and to get the guys the jobs.
You wouldn't
and
just
stuff.
drop
You don't
Alexis
just-
off and
you don't
give the
just-
keys
You're
to
saying
the
it's not JT Walsh walking around a parking lot being like, my money is laundered.
Right.
It's scrubbed.
You'll never find it. He goes to the coach's TV show. He's
Yeah.
this crooked booster. It's like, come on in, coach. Oh, he's there with Ricky Rowe. They showed up together.
The
Ricky's new
other
car.
really strong thing that stood out to me, and I just feel like I need to mention it, is the wife, or the ex-wife, I guess,
Mary McDonald.
who her entire existence is based around her ex-husband, and her entire view of him is based on how he coaches and how he handles his professional life.
Yeah.
That like he comes over to her house and she's like, no, you lied to me. And you're like, yeah, you did lie. But then you step back and you're like, he lied about like his job. Like, what is this? How does this affect your personal relationship that he may or may not be paying his players? And she's just way too into this team, especially because she's not even married to
She
him
feels
anymore.
like she's almost tacked on because there is no moral compass in this movie, so they have to
Yeah.
make somebody who's like, this is bad. You know?
Titus, let me introduce you to a very important era in sports movies. The
Is
wet
that-
blanket girlfriend
is
slash
that
wife.
what
Yeah.
it is?
This starts with Adrian Balboa in Rocky 2, which was 79. And for about a 15, 20-year stretch there, any female character just had to be somebody that threw a wet blanket on the lead
Isn't when you say
character.
wet blanket,
That's all
isn't
she
it like,
did.
I don't want you to get brain damage?
No, I think that would be a good thing,
Yeah.
right? No. This is just like she really has no other role other than to be disapproving.
Yeah.
Which is how all the female characters are written in all these sports movies. And then eventually they started figuring out, but even that was rocky because that leads to
Peaking
Kelly
with
Preston.
Kelly Preston, yeah.
But my question is, why not
movie.
make her like just upset that he cares too much about his job and not enough about their marriage, and that's why it didn't work, and maybe that's her angle. But instead, like, she cares almost more than he cares, and like,
Wow.
keep your integrity and all that kind of stuff. And
Or go the other way and just make it ridiculous and like Shaq had sex with her once during
Yeah,
a
yeah.
tutoring session. And
Who do you think is,
totally
is the
crazy.
best actor out of Matt Norver, Shaq, and Penny?
So I'm glad you asked because I thought about this a lot. The acting in this movie is pretty bad. I think Shaq stole a couple scenes. Shaq takes a lot of shit for his acting.
Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador.
culturally biased or whatever.
He's funny a couple times, and I felt this way in the theater too. When he's in a scene, it's like, oh, cool, it's Shaq. But
Yeah.
now it's like he's so giant that it's like young, skinny, whole life ahead of him Shaq. I don't know. I kind of like seeing him in these scenes. He definitely has a sparkle in his eye. Penny Hardaway, you just kind of feel bad for.
Yeah. My bit of trivia that I know about, what was the guy that played Ricky Rowe? Would you
Matt
say
Nover.
Matt Nover, whatever.
Matt Nover. How do you not know who Matt Nover is? He was like a role model for you. He was a 6'6" shooter.
Right. He did play at IU. He was just like, it was a little bit before my time. I was too young to.
But didn't you know the legacy of every white 6'6" shooter
that
in
played
Indiana?
He slipped through the cracks. He apparently played against Shaq in Shaq's final college game. I found this out, that IU beat Shaq in Shaq's final college game, and Shaq went 12 for 12 from the free throw line. That's
he?
a bit of trivia.
Wow.
That's kind of
Maybe
yeah.
the extra weight
That's
threw
a-
off his.
Yeah.
That's
Free throw
is that
thing.
scientifically right? What happens in this movie where they're like, where Sil Kozar, who's like, yeah, he went to the army and grew 8 inches, and once his body caught up, like once his coordination caught up with how big he was, he became Magic Johnson again. Like,
Right.
yeah, is that how bodies work?
I think they're
I stopped growing at 5'8", so I
they're
don't know.
basically saying Shaq was a Desert Storm vet in
Yeah,
this,
it's like
in
David
this
Robinson,
movie,
right? It's supposed to be
Right.
David Robinson. Like, he grew 6 inches in the military. And
But yet
played-
he's in Louisiana, in this part of Louisiana that I've never even they have
Algiers,
to take
yeah.
a boat.
But
to
they
get
also
to run
he's
through the
also
jungle.
been
Somehow there's a
in
gym?
Europe. He's been in Europe and played JUCO.
yeah.
So he's 25.
yeah.
It's a lot of life. That's like Jack Kerouac right there.
I
Like,
also love I could see this in 1973, but in 1993 that there's some franchise center nobody's heard
Yeah.
of. He's just in Algiers, just playing
Tucked
basketball.
away on a 9.5 foot rim or whatever that was, that he's just abusing those poor kids trying to guard him.
yeah, I
And
mean,
that-
it would be absolutely impossible to have that character today because it would be like the Thon McCur, like that would be the YouTube mixtape would already be up about this kid, no matter what.
Quick break to talk about propercloth.com. Every guy knows that it's hard to find a dress shirt that fits. Maybe the collar's too tight. Maybe the sleeves are too long. Maybe the shirt's too loose. Well, I have some good news. Ordering a custom fit shirt has never been easier thanks to Proper Cloth. Create a custom shirt size in seconds by just answering 10 easy questions. No measuring required. Over 500 fabric styles to choose from. Everything from classic business to casual shirts, all high quality. Starting at just $85, Proper Cloth has hundreds of 5-star reviews on Google and Yelp. It's the highest rated custom shirt maker on Google. Find out why GQ calls them their favorite online custom shirt maker. Go to their easy-to-use website. Make a custom profile. Even order from your phone. By the way, Proper Cloth guarantees a perfect fit. Remakes are free. The Proper Cloth team makes it super easy to do. Stop wearing dress shirts that don't fit. Look your best. Go to propercloth.com/BS and enter gift code BS. Happens to be my initials to save $20 on your first shirt. Again, propercloth.com/BS. Gift code BS. And since we're here, let's talk about our old friend Stamps.com. Convenient, easy, reliable, flexible. Those are my favorite words to describe Stamps.com. Why wouldn't you avoid the post office? Why wouldn't you buy and print official U.S. postage with your own computer and printer? Why wouldn't you hand your packages to your own mailman right outside your own house or apartment? Sign up with Stamps.com. You can automatically calculate and print the correct amount of postage for every letter or package you send. It's the U.S. Postal Service right at your fingertips. Any letter, any package, any class of mail, you're in control of all of it. Stamps.com will send you a digital scale to automatically calculate exact postage. and they'll help you decide the best class of meal based on your needs. You'll never have to go to the post office again. Right now, use my code BS for this special offer, a 4-week trial that includes postage and a digital scale without long-term commitments. Listen, I don't go to the post office anymore because I use Stamps.com. You could too. Go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage. Type in BS. That's Stamps.com. Enter BS. Sign up today with Stamps.com. You will never have to go to the post office again. Back to the Sports Movie Hall of Fame Blue Chips with Mark Titus and Chris Ryan.
Would you have ever gone to a coach and said, I want 30K in a tractor?
I wish I would have. I wanted a coach to just want me at all, to be
Right.
honest. But yeah, no, that's just the audacity of that. That's what I mean. Like, there are a lot of scenes like that. I'm sure it does happen. I'm not good enough
Would
to
Evan
know.
Turner have done that? No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't
And
think it works like that.
And he was the most self-assured person you ever played with.
Right. But I should note that when I was at Ohio State, I was kept away from the recruits, and it was explained to me.
Really?
I was the only guy during the of all my teammates, I was the only guy on the team for the 4 years that never once hosted a recruit. Even like the other walk-ons
Wait,
hosted
why?
recruits. And I brought it
Probably
up to
a
Coach
good idea.
Mata, who I love. I love Thad Mata to death, and he really likes me. And I brought it up to him one time, and his answer was, "We didn't let you host recruits because we wanted the recruits to come here." That was all he said.
That feels flat out
I
of
was like,
something.
you know what? I respect that. I respect that decision, Coach. That was that. So
So big winners of this movie. I think Bob Cousy won.
yeah.
Rick Pitino.
Richard Pitino.
Yeah. How about Ed O'Neill getting to play a guy named Ed?
Ed O'Neill playing a guy named Ed, who's, I guess, the Pulitzer
let's-
Prize winning investigator.
We should talk
That-
about Ed O'Neill's character, because the other thing that jumped out to me is he's got the lead on this big case. It's going to be the case of this entire program. And instead of like kind of maneuvering behind the scenes or like asking Coach privately, he like breaks his story in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really have a story yet.
He's just like, I gotta ask. I wouldn't be doing my job
Like,
if I
if
didn't
you were
ask you.
sitting-
He's got Vip out. Yeah.
Like Bill, if you had like evidence that LeBron was doing PEDs, which I know you do, I know you have a lot of evidence. You're not gonna, you know what I
I
mean?
do not have evidence.
But if you had like
He wouldn't
some
break it on this podcast.
if you had some juicy story, you wouldn't go to a press conference and just like throw it out to the whole world. Wouldn't you like kind of go behind the scenes and try to build something?
That's
And
normally what reporters do, yes.
right. Isn't
Yeah.
that what reporting is? I didn't go to journalism school, but I assume that's how it typically works. So that was kind of outrageous to me that was just
Ed O'Neill was just gratuitous casting.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was Married with Children era, and Mary McDonnell was coming off Dances with Wolves,
And Independence Day. She was like in some of the
And
biggest
Independence
movies
Day.
of the 90s.
and what was the other one? Grand Canyon.
She was in Sneakers.
She had a nice little run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never totally understood it. I think she caught some bolt of lightning there. It was like the Penelope Ann Miller kind of, just in a couple movies where you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Just kind of
They also
banging
had
these
the
out.
when at the big climatic game when they beat Indiana, Coach comes into the press conference and the media is just clapping, like going absolutely
Right.
nuts. Like,
Yeah.
Coach, you did it. I mean, Brian Curtis would have a field day with that.
Brian Curtis would not have liked
He
that.
would not have liked that.
And
I
Unless
like
it
when
was
he's
the
like,
guys covering.
how many rebounds did Neon have? And like it takes like 5 guys to be like 13, 13. Imagine Doc Rivers being like, how many boards did he have?
the thing that, so people are probably asking themselves, well, why did this make Sports Movie Hall of Fame then? First of all, it's incredibly rewatchable. For all its flaws, it's just there's never really a point in the movie where you're like, oh man, this is dragging, or oh man, let's fast forward. Everything's good. The music is excellent. Like that, they have this cool blues soundtrack at various points, but then they also use real songs like
Little
the,
Mellencamp
Looking
at the
out my
end.
back door. Yeah,
oh
a little
yeah,
CCR.
the Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix song when he's going to find out if Tony shaved points.
Yeah.
They're playing. I think it was All on the Watchtower.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a well done basketball movie that is somehow not totally gratifying, and yet if it's on, I'm always like, oh, I'm just gonna watch the one part with Shaq here, and I just find myself getting sucked in for these little stretches.
It's definitely like a really interesting time capsule movie too, because
Yes.
it's just that was right before you started just getting like a scandal du jour, and you would just like there would just be like a like this team would go up and this team would come down, and it was, you know, right. It was just really when people, I think, were
That's
like
before the internet.
yeah, and people, but there was enough information out there. Like you had your Street and Smith's annual like yearbooks
Yeah.
and stuff, and people were like, "Oh man, Billy Owens is at Syracuse. Oh man, like Chris Webber's going to Michigan. Like Anthony Hardaway's going to
Yeah.
Memphis. Like why is he going to Memphis? You know, like all this stuff that was like people were starting to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
and it was just perfectly timed for that.
Yeah, because the 80s wasn't like that.
Yeah.
We didn't know in the 80s so and so was going to this college or that, or like I can't tell you one time that I ever heard, other than I guess there's two, Ralph Sampson and Patrick Ewing were the two big centers where it was a huge deal where they're going to play, but they were like, Sampson was 7'4" and he was on the cover of SI, and Patrick Ewing was like the greatest high school center. They thought he was going to be the next Bill Russell. But other than that, the guys would sneak up, or there'd be like a Hakeem Olajuwon type story where it's like they found
There'd
this
be like
guy
a New
from
York
Nigeria.
point guard every once in a
New
while.
York
like
point guard would
Sham
happen.
guy. Like there would just be like a couple of guys, like because the New York, they would wind up getting national press out of New York high schools and stuff. Like
But
I
even-
remember Kenny Anderson, Dennis Scott, and
Kenny
Brian
Anderson was a
Oliver
big
was
one.
like a huge thing.
But like Larry Johnson ending up at UNLV, and he was like 30 years old when he was there, but he was at JUCO for 2 years, and they got him and they brought him
Stacey
in.
Augmon
and-
might have been older.
Yeah, but I never remember in the moment like, oh, they got Larry Johnson. When everything changed was the Fab Five.
Yeah.
So that was like I think 91, but when they stacked that team and with the recruits, that was the first time I remember really paying attention, being like, oh,
Yeah, and I think
Oh,
you started
this
to
is-
like Cal at Memphis. I started.
yeah,
like, really being
Sports Center
Cal
started
Memphis,
playing it
yeah.
like,
up.
How do you get Derrick Rose?
True,
Yeah.
true. Yeah, but that was much later though.
What year's that?
That was like
was 2000.
But when
Yeah,
did Cal start at
2007,
Memphis
yeah.
though?
Cal, the UMass was the one
Cal
when he
started
started.
at
getting,
UMass, and he can
yeah.
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was dirty at UMass, dirty at Memphis, but he cleaned
Well,
up.
we
he cleaned up
allegedly
his-
dirty.
He cleaned up his act when he got to Kentucky,
Yeah,
though. That's
definitely
for sure.
cleaned up his act.
Oh, there was a coach, Coastal Carolina coach. I remember hearing this. Saw the movie Blue Chips. His name was Russ Bergman, I think. He played with Pete Maravich actually, but saw the movie Blue Chips and basically felt so guilty about what Pete Bell went through that he admitted to some infractions based on
Changing lives.
Yeah, like he came out of the movie like I need to clean my conscience here.
Still a
That's
dirty
it.
program. Coastal Carolina.
Coastal Carolina, yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah, like that was
So-
that was a
Allegedly.
thing that happened. So
We had a lot of fun doing this with White Man Can't Jump. We gotta
Yeah.
reboot it.
Yeah.
So let's reboot Blue Chips for now.
So, I'm glad you asked. I think it's a Netflix series, and I think the coach is the most important thing. But the cool thing about rebooting anything now is all of these guys are so hungry to have this second life, and in either as an actor or social media or whatever. I feel like you could get any player you want. Anybody under 25, like really, like Emmanuel Mudiay is not going to want to be in
Yeah,
the Blue Chips
right.
remake, and
I wanna
all
be in
these
it.
dudes.
Yeah.
I want to be like
Titus
one of the
is
token
available.
white dudes that's
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah,
Just,
he's ready. He's in shape.
yeah,
He's ready
Put me
to-
in it.
Be Ricky Rose like son.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like,
But this is why I think Rick Fox is going to be remembered as somebody who's just way ahead of his time. Like Rick Fox, Blue Chips, Eddie, he got game, bangs it out in a 4-year span.
jeez.
And Oz, and he's playing basketball, and he's about to win titles in the Lakers. Like he was a good player when he was doing all this stuff. He kind of saw the future. He saw how to parlay all these different things. Shaq went the other way. Shaq didn't do the basketball thing as much, but yeah, I think with Blue Chips, the coach would be the key. So it's got to be somebody who's in that 50 to 54 range, right? That we have some history with.
yeah.
So
or
who
you could
is
do
that?
something younger. Like you could try to do like Jamie Foxx as like a Shaka Smart type guy or something like that.
I like how you switch colors on it.
Well, just you could make
That's a
somebody
good
who's
one.
just like, I'm a young guy trying to break in here, and like you could have a whole AAU subplot. You could have.
So you're basically doing like the Andy Enfield
That'd be-
USC
yeah.
type of.
That'd be good with Shaka Smart because he was like the hot young coach of VCU, and then he got to Texas, and they suck now. So maybe he's like going through the
The
he's like, should I
Texas
start,
Boosters.
Should I start cheating? Should I start?
now
you
he's
know?
like the under 18s coach, just like
Yeah.
conveniently like gonna get some signatures there probably.
Or maybe you do it with maybe it's a guy who's coaching Duke University who's had a lot of success, who also happens to be the Olympic team coach,
Like Giamatti.
and leverages the Olympic team connections for a huge recruiting advantage, and then claims that he's all about education, but it's just one and
Jack
done every
Nicholson
year.
as Jerry Colangelo.
I don't know who that coach would be, but I think maybe that's somebody.
Maybe this coach, like, he hires an old assistant of his who got fired from his other job for recruiting violations, and then when that assistant comes to the program, they start landing 5 stars left and right.
Yeah,
like maybe a
that
coach like
could
that,
work.
for example.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like-
and it
yeah.
always seems like he's going to retire, but it never does.
Yeah, that's
and,
interesting.
And
know
there's
who
this,
that could
he
be.
has this other rival at a school, maybe in this, like in Kentucky, somewhere like that, that everyone blames for this stuff.
Cool.
I think
that's a
could
cool
work.
idea. That's
You
cool.
like
You
that
came
one?
up with that by yourself.
Costner?
I don't know.
Too
Costner,
old?
the thing that's you gotta have is somebody. Costner doesn't strike me as somebody who can be that morally compromised. Like I feel like you need like Alec Baldwin.
Like Michael Douglas?
Yeah, somebody who's
Alec
just like
Baldwin turns
Baldwin
it into like a SNL sketch.
Yeah,
Hey,
right.
Alec Baldwin now, anything he's in is an SNL. So I can't take him as a real actor anymore.
Giamatti would be good.
No, stop selling me on Giamatti. Just
Giamatti
stop.
would be a good.
Just stop.
Like I've been coaching New York basketball for 25 years.
That would be funny. I just had
I
it.
played for Lou Conaseca.
You reminded me of something. If Tom Hanks is in Blue Chips, if Tom Hanks is
Ooh.
Pete Bell,
That would be great.
is it a totally
But didn't
different
Tom
movie?
Hanks make that movie? It's a League of Their Own.
Yeah, but he's like kind of drunk pot-bellied version of Pete Bell. I don't really know like what Nolte was going for with Pete Bell. I think is one of my issues with the movie. It's like he didn't really have a vice.
Yeah, except though there is one scene. There's not a lot of like, oh man, this is so nostalgic to see. Like there's a couple like Shaq wearing Zubas or whatever scenes, but there's one scene where when Ricky comes in to be like, I'm gonna come to college here, so I want 30 grand, and the cutaway is Nick Nolte sitting on the couch and he's got a giant glass of high C. And it's like before we knew sugar was bad, so it's just like an old man drinking fruit punch. And it's just amazing. I was just like, oh yeah, that was before you knew that would kill you. like he's gonna die in 2 years.
Well, with the first Sports Movie Hall of Fame pod we did, we talked about how 96 was kind of the cutoff.
Yeah.
And how everything 96 and after just became more nuanced.
Yeah, and
It
more
made
knowing
sense.
about the world of sports.
It wasn't just like, hey, here's a college basketball movie, and we're going to try to tell you everything about college basketball in 100 minutes. The ambition became much more like characters. Let's pick a piece of college basketball, blow it out. He Got Game, which is another movie, it's a lot about college basketball. It does it so much more effectively than Blue Chips. Blue Chips is like the blown out parody version of a college basketball
That's my
movie.
gripe is that it has zero nuance whatsoever. It's just like trying to show everybody what college basketball is, and I guess maybe if you don't know, that's interesting, but for someone like me who kind of lived that, it's like this is just absolutely ridiculous. And
The reality
parody of
is
it and
that
stuff like
we just all like college basketball, and I
Yeah.
know all the college basketball movies that have ever been made, and I think I've seen all of them a combined 500 times.
Yeah.
Because you go back to One on One with Robbie Benson, Fast Break, my favorite sports movie of all time. That's I think is banned from cable because it's so inappropriate for so many reasons.
How have we made it this long without talking about the gratuitous Larry Bird?
Oh
I was
like-
saving that for the tail end.
Yeah.
So it's post-retirement legend. They go. We had to see his house, which I have to admit, in 1994, I might have popped one. I just ran my pants, just might have lost it. But then he's like, "I'll take you to Ricky. I know where he lives." But then he's not in the next scene.
Yeah.
It's like,
That you know what that meant? They got Larry Bird for one day of shooting.
yeah. And somebody called in like the biggest favor of all time.
Yeah. And he also says, "Coach, what do you want?" Like you live in a town of 200 people, and there's this 5-star recruit, and this college coach from L.A. flies to your town and comes to see you, and then you go like, "So what is it? What do you want, Coach?" And Nick Nolte's like, "I want to talk to Rick," and he's like, "Oh, is that what you want?" And like
Yeah,
he's shocked.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Like what? That's why you're in
That's
French
also
Lick,
like
Indiana.
the
I
Lou
would never
Gossett
guess.
Jr. cameo that happens. Like when Lou Gossett walks out and he's like, "Everybody wants a piece of Butch."
Oh yeah.
$50.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
$50. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
I forgot about the
That was
Lou
a little
Gossett
montage,
cameo.
yeah, of the recruiting.
It's Larry Bird. I think this was his only movie appearance.
Was that the house that he was at when he hurt his back? Was that
Yeah.
the one? That's the.
Yeah,
What's
that was the
Pete
end of the
Burke
early
Celtics
90s
movie?
Celtics diary.
What's the Daniel Stern movie? The Celtics.
Oh, Celtics Pride.
And Larry doesn't have a cameo in there.
No, Larry doesn't have a
He's
kid.
in Space Jam.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is in Space Jam,
Yeah, he is
yeah.
in Space Jam.
They got Larry Bird and Bob Knight in this movie. That
And
is
Bob
like,
Cousy.
and that is
Bob
absolutely
Cousy
shocking.
cries.
Absolutely
I think Bob
shocking.
Cousy wins the movie.
Bob Cousy.
Yeah. Biggest loser? Probably Matt Nover. It's like Shaq and it's Penny and then it's Matt Nover.
Yeah.
And then Nick Nolte's just really mean to him twice.
Yeah.
Get out of here, Ricky! Like I thought you were trying to recruit this guy. You're kicking him out of his office.
Yeah.
And then he's mean to him a second time. He tells him
When
to
he gets
get
the
out.
car, yeah.
Yeah, he like throws the keys at him. You
Another
get
big
out of
winner
here.
from this movie is the Orlando Magic.
Yeah. So we didn't mention that part because they filmed this movie right after they had made the Penny trade and was Shaq and Penny together, and then they had a fun first season together. I think that's how it went. Was it the '94
I
draft
thought
or
they
'93?
made the movie and Shaq was like, "I love this guy."
That's what it was.
That's
They got
juicy.
No, they were.
That's what happened.
I think they were filming it, and
Like-
Shaq liked them.
Blue
Something
Chips
like
brought
that.
those two together.
I think it did.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So then this.
That's what they said in this magic moment. He was like, I like playing with this guy.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
impressed by the play of Hardaway that he strongly encouraged the Orlando Magic to draft him, according to Wikipedia.
Wow.
So
Oh,
Blue
that's
Chips
definitely
swung
true.
the Orlando
Wow.
Magic thing, and then that comes out and they're together. But like, what's the equivalent of it? It would almost be like if Durant and Westbrook had been in Blue Chips in
But then the
2008.
domino effect is if Blue Chips doesn't get made, does Penny never go to the Magic and does Shaq never then go to the Lakers?
Penny's on the Warriors. C-Web goes to Orlando, and C-Web and Shaq are feuding immediately, I think. I don't think they
Lakers,
ever get
yeah.
along at
Yeah.
any point of that. That's like the Boogie Anthony Davis thing, how that's going to play out. But at the time, it was like stunning when they took. It was like, oh my God, Shaq and C-Web are going to be in the same team. This is going to be like the greatest basketball team of all time. Now it's like the Warriors would just space them out. You'd have to take one of them off the floor. Blue Chips, final grade.
B- for me.
So you would not have put this in the Hall of Fame?
No, but it's just
I think it has to
it's
be in the Hall of
different
Fame.
because it's not a movie that is like lovable. So all these other movies in their own way are like either like really campy or they're like just really feel good movies or they're really smart.
Yeah.
This one's like good, but it's definitely just like an unflinching dark look at sports.
As a comedy, it's an A minus for me.
Unintentional comedy.
Unintentional
Yeah.
comedy. As like whatever it was trying to be, I'd say like a C. Yeah, C minus.
What are you
something
gonna
like
say?
that.
I think whenever I wrote about this, I remember comparing it to Penny Hardaway's NBA career.
Yeah.
It's just an incredible amount of promise. Started out great. Really, Blue Chips' first half hour is really good.
yeah.
Some bumps, ultimately not that satisfying, and yet kind of a tiny bit underrated
And
now after
important.
all these years.
And yeah, you'll remember it. Yeah, as you
It's definitely
get
unique.
older. And,
It's
yeah.
one of a kind. Penny was one of a kind. Better than you remembered, which I think it goes the same for Penny. Like Penny was first team All NBA in '95 or '96, one of those years. Led a team to the finals with Shaq. Made $140 million or $150 million, something. It's not like he was a bust. Like he had a pretty good career, and I think that's the Blue Chips legacy. It's totally watchable. I don't think that, like, I know there are people that like they love He Got Game. There are people that like they love White Men Can't Jump, or like people like me that love Fast Break. I don't know if there's
Is there like a Blue Chips hive?
Blue Chip, yeah.
yeah, the
I don't
people
know.
like Blue Chips. That's my movie,
Is
man.
that
When
anybody's
Tony was
favorite
point
sports
shaving,
movie?
Yeah.
yeah.
I love
don't
it when he
think
drinks High C.
yeah, but really, like for a 10-year stretch, it's the only college hoop movie of its time.
A lot of Blue Chips posters in my college.
Great poster.
No ca-
Great
yeah, good
poster with
posters.
Shaq and Nolte on it. One of the best posters. Yeah.
Would you go Above the Rim or Blue Chips? Because that was the same year.
I'd go Blue Chips. I like Blue Chips better than
I love Above the
Rim.
Rim. Above the Rim's incredible. Now, Above the Rim is a masterpiece.
I think we know our next one then.
It's a masterpiece. It's just fantastic. Rafe and I think Andrew Sharp and we wrote 8,000 words about Above the Rim for Greatland.
Yeah. Was that
Tupac's-
Concepcion or Sharp?
I can't even remember. I can't remember anything anymore. All right, that's it for Sports Movie Hall of Fame. We have. Do we know what the next one is yet? Should we take suggestions?
Well, yeah, let's get some suggestions. I have a couple in mind.
Maybe we'll do a Facebook poll when we post the link for this podcast, and we'll give you 4 choices.
Yeah.
And you can vote on the choices. Do you have a suggestion, Mark Titus? Don't say Hoosiers.
That's the only
Don't say
suggestion I would
Hoosiers.
have.
Is there any other
No.
suggestion?
I'd have to think about it. Nothing jumps out to me now.
Nothing jumps out, and after 50 years of sports movies, nothing?
I mean, Hoosiers is the one. I would say like Mighty Ducks for people that are my generation.
Would you go Mighty Ducks or Ducks 2?
Ducks 2 probably. That's probably the better one.
Hard
so
pass.
I think
Ducks 2.
Yeah. See, I think you guys are like you have a blind spot to like the.
I don't have a blind spot at all.
well, yeah,
I do,
The
yeah.
podcast does. You know, we need some. Yeah.
Well, we tried to keep it last 20 years, but I
Right.
think now we're going to try to
We've
dip our
had,
toes
there's a couple
little
of
bit.
suggestions I hear a lot are Creed, The Replacements,
Replacements.
A League of Their Own. He's got game. So we should mix it up. We've been hopping from sport to sport.
I'm almost ready for Creed. I think I've almost seen it enough times.
Yeah.
The ATV scene. Is that what you call those things? Those little
Yeah.
4-wheel things?
The Meek Mill scene, yeah.
Amazing.
Remember the Titans? Is that too obvious? Is
No,
that
that's a
like-
good one.
would that
That's a
be-
good one.
Here's my
know.
thing about Remember the Titans. Did we have to paralyze the guy? it's based on a true story. Couldn't he just like blow down his knee? Do we have to put him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life? It's a feel-good sports movie. I can't get over. Every time I watch it, I'm like, why did they do that? And then Kate Bosworth, I think is the sexiest racist in the history of movies. Like, she's fantastic and she's so hateful. There's never been like
We're
a more
definitely not
hateful.
doing Remember the
There's
Titans.
never been a
Right,
more.
yeah.
We definitely just have to
This
hope
is off
no
to a
one
great
is still
start.
listening.
There's never been a more hateful, hot character I can remember in any movie. Like, she's the worst person ever. And it's like, wow, Kate Bosworth looks great. And meanwhile, she's just horrible. You're not backing me on this?
I don't. Which part? The paralyzing or the Kate Bosworth part?
Kate Bosworth.
I honestly didn't remember the Kate Bosworth. All I remember is
Oh, she
Gosling
looks
from that.
unbelievable.
Virtue's girlfriend.
Yeah, she looks
Oh, yeah,
unbelievable
yeah.
in it, and she's the worst person. So yeah, that's another. Maybe we should just save this for the Remember the Titans
Yeah, I
podcast.
think so. I think you hit on something.
It also has one of my favorite tropes, which is the 8-year-old girl who knows sports as well as the
Yeah,
adults.
right. Oh, yeah.
the,
That's
the
like
human
Billy
being
Bean's
that's
daughter.
never existed
Yeah.
ever. She knows how to like break down the West Coast offense. It's like this human doesn't exist. Anyway, all right, we'll save that for the next time. Mark Titus,
Thanks, guys.
thank you. We'll save you for the Hoosiers one.
Yeah.
The
Please
Hoosiers
do.
one might be 4 hours though.
That would be. We're gonna turn that into a series. I could talk about Hoosiers.
I have
forever.
so many thoughts about Buddy's mysterious reappearance.
Yeah,
Buddy gets kicked off the team and then he's back.
he's back. Just.
Hey, it's
without-
just
Yeah.
Chris Ryan.
Take care.
It was great.
All right, that's it. If you want to hear the rest of the Sports Movie Hall of Fames, go to Channel 33. They are all on there. Don't forget to download the SeatGeek app today or go right to SeatGeek.com. We have 2 more BS podcasts coming this week, including Larry Wilmore coming tomorrow on Wednesday. Should be fun. He's a great guest and a fun guy to talk to about a whole bunch of stuff. He's also a Lakers fan. We might talk about that a little bit as well. Until tomorrow, the BS Podcast.